Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got the one and only Jay Bilas with me. Jay, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Brett. How are you?
Good. You're a patient man, too, because that's what I'm learning about you. What they don't know is this is our third attempt at starting this thing, and something keeps happening, and it freezes up here, and I'm like, holy crap. I've got Jay Bilas on my podcast, 468th interview, and what in the hell is going on? So hopefully this time it works. But we connected. You'd shared one of my podcasts with Jim Holtgrave, and you know Jim from the golf world.
I do. Jim Holtgrave is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met, and playing golf with him, just being around him is a treat. And he's a wonderful example of how you can be a great competitor and an extremely nice person and thoughtful. You know, every time you play with Jim, he sends you a handwritten note afterwards. It's extraordinary. He's a wonderful human being.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's the way I've experienced him, so good to hear. So, but I always talk about what's made you the man you are today, man. You've done a lot of great stuff, played basketball at Duke for 4 years, scored over 1,000 points, led the team to the 86 championship game. You returned to coach, won 2 national titles out of 3 years, law school at Duke, ESPN since 1995, author, and what I didn't know is a 9-time Emmy nominee, man. What a career. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've been lucky. You know, you get to do what you've wanted to do, and you're nice to say the Emmy thing, but the job is the award. To be able to work in the industry I work in and with the people I work with, I've tried not to take for granted how cool it is, the job that I've been lucky enough to have.
Yeah. What were the early habits in your career that really none of us saw, right? You've built this, what I would call a personal brand. You're an amazing, probably one of the most trusted voices in sports. And it's one of those that's cool to be in this environment because I've listened to you for so long, right? I could just kind of close my eyes and know exactly where you're listening at. But what were the early habits that most people never saw but made the biggest difference for you in your career?
I think the habit that I've taken advantage of the most is I strive to be prepared all the time. And when you're in a business where your opinions sometimes are your brand, any topic on which I speak, I try to be ultra prepared. It doesn't mean I'm right or I expect people to think I'm right or agree. But if I'm gonna share my judgment on any issue relating to the game or around the game or in any sphere, I want to make sure I'm knowledgeable and prepared, and that there's substance behind it, and I can back it up. And I think my training in law has been really helpful of being able to make a reasoned argument, to be able to back it up, have evidence for it, and make sure that any discussion I'm in, we can differ with one another, but we can differ without being disrespectful. It's about the issue, not about the person.
Yeah, I love that. What's preparation like for you? Like, I know this week before we started recording, you said you got, I think, Texas Tech and Houston. And so what's that look like for you? So when you come in locked in on Saturday, you're ready to go?
If it's I try to prepare all the time, so I'm constantly watching film of teams. I'm not one of those that'll dial up a game and just watch it start to finish on television because my schedule doesn't necessarily work that way. But I use the same scouting service that most college and professional teams use. So I'm constantly watching film of teams and learning what they're about, what they do, the traits of teams and players, so that I can make judgments on them. And when I'm calling a game, I don't watch film thinking, okay, how do you stop this middle pick and roll action? I want to be able to point out what the teams are doing for viewers in the hope of enhancing their viewing experience. And it's a balance. You know, you want to balance. I don't want to make it into a coaching clinic. But you want to balance the fun of the game and the fact that it is serious competition, the X's and O's with the stories that go with the players and the teams. And the end goal is that the viewer comes away having enjoyed the experience, If they learn something about the game that they didn't know, that's great, or something about a player or coach that they didn't know, that's great. The one thing I don't want to do as a broadcaster is get in the way of the competition and make it about us, not about the players on the floor and the coaches and the officials, all that. You want to be an enhancement rather than detracting from it in any way.
Yeah. What's a mindset that you carry still with you today that maybe as a young player you learned that really hit home then, and then all these years later is still hitting home with you?
You know, Brett, I think the preparation side, I think my training as a lawyer really helped there. So I want to be prepared. And then I try, Coach K taught us as players that we needed to have what he called a next play mentality, that whatever happens in the present, you need to let it go and move on to the next play. So whatever happens in the course of my day, I try to stay present and handle what's in front of me. And if I make a mistake or if I do something great, let it go and handle the next play, whatever's next in front of me. And, I think Mike Tomlin, kind of puts it, my windshield is bigger than my rearview mirror type of thing.
Yeah.
And part of that is, I think, putting it a different way is I really strive to concentrate on what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And I don't get caught up in what's coming up next, like what I have next week. I prepare for it, but I'm not going to let that bother me while I'm in the middle of something. And I try desperately not to carry with me what may have just happened. So, concentrating and staying present on what I'm doing is really important to me. My dad put it pretty well. When I used to work with my dad during the summers when I was younger, because he wanted me to learn what working for a living really looked like, so I'd pay more attention in school.
That's right.
And one of my jobs working construction with him was I'd have to get the materials from the ground level up to the roof when we were doing roofing work. And I had overloaded myself one time thinking if I took fewer trips, if I carried more stuff each trip, I could take fewer trips and get this, horrible job over with. And I took a spill one time on a ladder. And my dad, after he found out I was okay, kind of got upset with me a little bit. And he said something really profound. I don't think he realized he was being profound at the time, but he just said, will you concentrate on what you're doing while you're doing it? And he said, you can't get to the top of that ladder in one step, but you can get to the bottom in one step. And, you started thinking about it, that what was the most important rung on the ladder was the one I was on. And the one I was negotiating, that didn't matter how many I'd done right or how many I had in front of me. If I didn't handle this one, I'm going to be flat on my back at the bottom.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. Your one mistake not turning into two mistakes and three mistakes. You would have loved commentating my sixth grade semifinal game I was coaching this past weekend when we were down 1 minute 18 left on the clock. We got the ball, forced a shot, and then they scored 8 points in 10 seconds because of 3 mistakes. And it's like, man, it's just like life, right? It can change like that. To your point on the ladder, it changes like that. So when you hear like that, the stories, you got to turn the page. Don't bring it over to the next play. How do you continue to build the credibility that you have in your world? Obviously, it's your preparation, but how do you stay a student of the game right now to get better day in, day out?
Well, I think it comes from realizing that you don't have everything figured out, that the game is constantly evolving. Everything really is. Everything changes. And I think once you think you've got it all figured out or you've seen it all, you're making a mistake. And I try to remain really curious about why coaches do certain things, how they approach things. I really, Brett, try to remain curious about what I'm covering. So even if I've seen a team play a number of times or maybe I broadcast their games, viewers that are watching may be seeing that for the first time. They may not have heard something I had said in a past game. So I try to learn something new about the teams because there's always something new. And I try to remain curious. And, what's revelatory about this team or this game or this player, this situation? And of course, remaining present. But I still do the legwork. Like I go to practices. And if the coaches open it up to me, a meeting, a scouting session, a practice, I go. And I don't think just because I've been doing this for 30 years that somehow I've got it knocked. I'm just as curious, if not more so, than I was when I first started.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Walk us through what your daily disciplines are. Like, even like, do you have a certain time you wake up? Is there exercise? Is journaling? Like, what are the things that you do to stay on top of everything?
I can't say that I have this military routine. When I wake up is usually a function of my travel schedule. And I'm in a space right now during the season where I have a lot of early wake up calls. So when I have a day where I could sleep longer, I usually don't. I usually pop up about when my alarm would go off to get up for a flight, no matter whether I'm flying or not. So sleep is something I'm not getting as much of as I need during the season right now. But I try to maintain a pretty, I don't want to call it rigorous, but religious. Like I go through a pretty good mobility routine every day. You know, I'm 62 years old. I'm still in good shape for my age, but I really try to remain mobile. And I can't work out on a regular schedule like I would want to. But one thing I try not to compromise on is mobility training. I play a lot of golf, and it's what I really enjoy doing. Yeah. And mobility is a big part of that. And the longer I can maintain that as I get older, the more I'm going to enjoy playing. So that I spend a lot of time on that. And then I spend a ton of time on basketball. Like there's not a day that goes by that I'm not watching film and preparing for what's upcoming. I really enjoy it, so I don't consider it to be work. You know, in my job, the only thing, Brett, that I think is work in my job is travel. Like the way I look at it, I don't think ESPN pays me to go to games and call games and study basketball. I think they pay me to travel.
Just get from here to there, and don't care how you do it. Just get there and show up and do your job, right?
Exactly. I mean, travel is not an enjoyable experience. I mean, I think people glorify it. I do not enjoy traveling. It's part of the job, and I manage it really well. It doesn't bother me. But if I had all home games, I would sign up for that tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's not like you're going to like major cities every time, right? You're having to get to these little towns in the middle of some state and maybe don't have big airports. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So that is probably some work. What's one of the biggest risks that you look back on your career and you say, man, it was scary as hell in the moment to take that risk, but I'm so glad I did it?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I've ever been scared about a decision I've made. I've been put to decisions several times, and most of the time I've decided to stay at ESPN when I've had opportunities to do other things. The one decision that I made or two, like I decided not to pursue coaching when my wife and I got married. We didn't think it would be the best life for a family, and I was going to do what we wanted rather than what I wanted. But I think after practicing law and being a lawyer full-time lawyer for 7-8 years, and I decided to go full-time at ESPN, that felt like it was a life-changing decision. But the thing that didn't make it feel like a risk was I had my law degree and my law practice kind of in my back pocket. So I felt like if I pursued the broadcast thing and it didn't work out, I screwed it up, or work dried up and nobody wanted me, I could hang my shingle out and practice law and make a really good living as a lawyer again. So it didn't feel like a risk, but it was certainly a different life than I thought I was going to lead as a lawyer.
Yeah. One of the things I respect most about you is that you do have an opinion, and you're not scared to talk about that opinion, no matter what it may be about. And so in the world of what I would call noise today, I saw there was some award, I think it was Sports Illustrated or something, that said you were the second most powerful person on X, right behind Shaquille O'Neal. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not, but that's what I saw in my research last night. And so when you can say anything and anybody can pop off, like, what do you do to make sure you're staying in a box, if that makes sense, but also being and having your own opinion and being okay with it?
I think part of it comes from staying in the lane that I think I should be in, and that is in the basketball space. And I do opine about college sports issues that go toward the legal side and the policy side on NCAA issues, but I've studied that. I've got a background in it. I was a member of an NCAA committee when I was in college. I learned the system. I think I know it. I don't know everything about it, but I think I know it. So I feel comfortable in making judgments and sharing those judgments with others. But similar to what we discussed before, I think when you are in the business of sharing your thoughts and your judgments and opinions, I don't think my opinion matters. Or I should say, I don't think it matters more than anyone else's. So I try to make all my statements and keep it reasonable. I'm sure I'm like others. I don't think anybody's in this business and isn't subject to making what people like to call hot takes or something.
Yeah.
But I don't like to get involved in meaningless discussions. And I want to make sure that everything I say first is right and it's reasonable and it's stated in the proper tone. And I've always felt that's my job, is to say the right thing at the right time and the right tone. Yeah. And when I do get it wrong, it's usually a tonal thing that sometimes people think you're angry or something like that when you're trying to make a definitive statement. So I try to be really thoughtful about that.
Yeah. Well, I also hear in that is very well prepared and very well thought out versus just going on there and just typing something and hitting send, right? I mean, you're thinking through that.
Yes. I mean, I can't say I've done it right all the time because nobody has, but I try not to make an opinion or a judgment on something that I haven't studied and given appropriate thought. And I really do try to stress test my opinions, that I'm willing to get into a discussion with anyone on anything and to try to make a rational argument with someone that if their argument is better than mine, you go, you know what, I need to rethink some of these points. I think those are important things to do, to stress test your opinions and judgments, because you're not, just because you feel a certain way about something doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. And I wouldn't say anything if I didn't believe I was right, but I'm not arrogant enough to think that just because I say it, somehow it's the law. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about Coach K and what that man meant to you and in your life.
Extraordinary influence on me and so many others. I'm among the luckiest of his former players that because of my age, I was able to play for him when he was younger. So he was probably 35 when he recruited me. And so I've had him as a coach, mentor, and friend for 40 plus years now. Wow. Probably about 45, 46 years. I met him in 1981. And wow. I was 17 years old when he first started recruiting me. I grew up in Southern California. And when he first called me, I honestly never heard of him. And that sounds absurd now. But he was not like ultra successful back then and didn't have a track record, never been to an NCAA tournament or Final Four. I mean, it sounds crazy, but my first NCAA tournament game as a player was his first NCAA tournament game as a coach. That's how long ago it was.
Wow.
And so to have had his mentorship for all these years, I always tell the current players, and the current players keep shifting, but you tell them, look, nobody's cornered the market on loving Duke and loving playing for Coach K. But one thing I know is I've loved it longer than they have, and
right.
And pretty darn lucky. I wouldn't
longer than they've been alive.
Yeah, and the truth is, Brett, like the players who played for him, like in 2021, 2022, his last year's coaching. I think I could make the argument that they played for a better coach than I did. Like, I think Coach K was a better coach later on in his career. That's natural, I guess.
Sure.
He's going to get better and did. But I wouldn't trade the time I played for him because of he was great then. But all the years that I've been able to benefit from his guidance and, he's never, ever he told me what to do as a player, but he's never told me what to do. But he's always helped me ask myself the right questions in any decision I had to make that was of importance, and I've always been really grateful for that.
Yeah. So it's funny, today we were having lunch here in the office, and one of our guys is a huge North Carolina fan. Don't be mad at me. He's a North Carolina guy, and we were talking about. I said, how does one objectively call a Duke North Carolina game? And coming from a North Carolina fan, he said Jay Bilas does a damn good job of doing that. What's that like for you when you got to do something like that?
It honestly, Brett, it's easy. Like, I just don't think fair is difficult. I don't go into that game. Look, everybody went to school somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't go into that game as a broadcaster who went to Duke. Like, obviously, I did go to Duke, but I have zero rooting interest in that game. And people can believe this if they want to, or disbelieve it if they want to. I don't care who wins that game. I don't care. I have way too much respect for the two programs to let sort of where you went to school even enter into it. It doesn't enter into it at all. And, you know, I've always found this interesting. Like, I was fortunate to work with Hubert Davis for 7-8 years, whatever it was, when we worked together at ESPN. And we're great friends. Like, there's nobody I like and respect and love more than Hubert Davis. He's an extraordinary person, an extraordinary coach, you name it. But when we were together, like, if he had said, hey, my parents are the best parents on the planet, I would have said, isn't that great? Like, he thinks his parents are the best ever, and I think mine are. You know, like, we would never argue with each other over who had the better parent. And you know, he thought Dean Smith and thinks Dean Smith was the greatest coach ever. And I may think Coach K was. And why would I argue with Hubert over whether Coach Smith or Coach K were better? I mean, that's an absurd. They're both amazing.
Legendary, yeah.
Legendary. And I try to explain to people that may have a rooting interest that somehow they let get the better of them, that Duke and Carolina would not be what they are without the other. And they largely recruit the same players. So the player that you got, if he had gone to Duke, the player that Carolina got, if he'd gone to Duke, Carolina fans would probably hate him, and vice versa. And you're going to recruit the same guys. And so many of the players at North Carolina, I'm such good friends with and admire so much. The programs are far more alike than they are different. The coaches are far more alike, and the players far more alike than they are different. They wear a different shade of blue. That's really the only difference. And they might have a few, you know, maybe Duke doesn't stand up when a player comes out after getting subbed out, in Carolina, like, who cares? Those are tiny differences. They're amazing programs. It's an amazing rivalry, and the game wouldn't be the same without it. And I would never let where a person went to school color my judgment or my view of things. I'm not built that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. You can actually feel that passion and belief behind that when you're talking about it. So that's really cool. What are you thinking about today's world, NIL, transfer portal? You probably get tired of talking about it or getting asked about it, but where's your head on that right now?
It's certainly imperfect. So there are things we can all complain about and say, this should be adjusted. This needs to be a little bit different. In a perfect world, I like this better, type of thing. But I think it's infinitely better now than it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, because the players now can get closer to their fair market value. They still can't get their fair market value, but they can be compensated now, whereas I played for free. I played for a scholarship, and that was it. And that wasn't right. It wasn't moral. This is a multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry, and I think the players deserve to bargain for their fair market value, just like every other person in our society, including every other student that's at these universities. You know, nobody tells a music student whether they can accept a scholarship and go out and cut a record or appear publicly at a club or Carnegie Hall or whatever. Nobody's telling a student thespian that they can't appear in movies, or a student, an English student, you can't write a book or sell your poetry. Or my daughter was an artist, professional artist, while she was in college, sold her artwork. Nobody told her you can't do that because you're in school and you should paint for the love of art. And so I think we're in a transition period now, and we're going to work through it and get to a point where what the way things work are beneficial to the enterprise and to the athletes, in addition to the coaches and administrators. Yeah. We're just in a period right now where it's unusual. It's different than it has been traditionally, but that doesn't make it bad. You know, these young people are making a lot of money now. They can build generational wealth. and ratings are higher than they've ever been. And if it's so bad, why are people tuning in more now than they were before? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, it's a great question. A friend of mine, local high school basketball coach here in town, Brian Muniz, said, have you seen coaches change their coaching philosophies or styles because of the transfer portal?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, they certainly changed their recruiting preferences. I think more coaches are gravitating toward older players in the portal. Because if you're going to have players for a shorter period, if you think you may only have a player for 1 or 2 years, you'd rather have an older, more experienced player that you can coach rather than a younger player. So that certainly happened. With the teams that I cover, and I'm very lucky, most of the teams that I'm calling games for are top 25 caliber teams. So I don't notice a difference in the way the players are coached on the floor and in practice and in games. I think they're still held to high standards, and they're still it's still valued to be a great teammate and to be held accountable, as coaches like to say, and play hard and all these things. So I don't notice any big difference there. Now, look, even a guy my age that has been around that long, when I walk into an arena now and I walk past the players' cars, they drive nicer cars than they used to, but I'm good with that. Because the coaches drive nicer cars than they used to.
That's right. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of money in this game. And the fact that the players can take advantage of it now, I think is a good thing. But if a person doesn't like it, my thing would be, then don't pay them at your school. If you don't want your players paid, then don't pay them at your school. But don't tell another school they can't do it. Because a lot of schools may feel like, well, I'm not going to pay my football coach $10 million. Well, they're not telling Alabama not to pay theirs $10 million,
right?
And I think the same needs to be applied to the players.
Yeah. Jared Hainsley, another friend, his question was the G League guys coming back to college basketball. Thoughts on that one?
It's funny, Brett. When we talk about players and limiting them, we say, hey, only 5% of players are ever going to play past college. Play in the NBA or play professionally. And we don't. You hear people say we don't want to change the whole system just for the 1%. How many G League players have come into college? 2.
That's great. Yeah. Right.
Like, what are we worried about? And James Nagy, who has been the target of a lot of this criticism, having gone from playing overseas and having played briefly in NBA summer leagues. He never played in an NBA game, never signed an NBA contract. He's a foreign player that played overseas. He's averaging like 4 points a game at Baylor. And what are we worried about? And really, when you get down to it, he's a 21-year-old that has decided, he tried professional basketball and it didn't work out for him. And so he's going to college. Isn't that what we said we really wanted, is for young people to be pursuing education and playing sports while they're there as part of that? With NIL now, what we're seeing is players are staying longer in school, which is what we said we wanted. Yep. When we were going through the whole one and done thing, we're like, these are mercenaries and, they're only there for a year and all that stuff. And now players are staying in school longer and getting their degrees. And I just don't see how that's not a good thing. It's just a little bit different. But, I tend to think that no matter where we are in our history of college sports or professional sports, every spot we've landed, we've always complained about how it is. Yeah. Like when I was in high school, my high school coach complained that we played way too much pickup ball and we didn't do enough drill work and didn't do enough skill development. And now coaches say all these guys do now is skill development. They don't play enough pickup. I would like to find out when in our history there have been no complaints. Yeah. Because we've complained about stuff from the beginning, and we're always going to do it. That's our nature.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of this podcast, is to put some good positive vibes out there, man, because there's a lot of crap. Whether you're talking about college sports or politics or whatever the heck we're talking about, everybody's got a freaking something to complain about. So lots of people have been saying college basketball may need a commissioner. Your thoughts on that? And are you ready for the job if they come calling? I said that. He did not say that.
Yeah, they can't afford me. Can't afford me.
That's right.
I think a commissioner that had appropriate authority would be great. But really what college sports needs is for structure that has principle behind it and is legal. In other words, if we say, hey, I don't like the transfer portal, I think players should have to, they can only transfer once in their 4 years. Other than that, if they want to leave, they should have to sit out a year. It's like, on what principle is that based?
Yeah.
To me, there's no principle behind it. As you probably know, the 1 year transfer restriction was called a year in residence rule. And the theory behind it was that when a player transferred from one school to another, that player needed a year to adjust and acclimate him or herself to the new school. That sounds great, but it's ridiculous when you think, well, wait a minute. College freshmen are eligible to play right away. They have zero college experience. So why don't they need to acclimate themselves? I mean, the truth is that year in residence rule was an unnecessary restriction to serve as a deterrent for players leaving and going to another school. And it essentially operated like a non-compete provision in an employment contract. And they're not employees. And to me, this whole thing on transfers is easily remedied if the NCAA would allow it. And that is allow schools to sign players to multi-year contracts. And if they want to make the players employees, they should be allowed to do it, in my view.
Yeah.
And if you signed a player to a multi-year contract, you could put buyouts in there. You could have contract conditions that are negotiated at arm's length. I think it would be a pretty simple way to do it. And then just enforce the contracts. For example, where I went to school, Duke, they signed a quarterback to an NIL deal. And I'm unaware of the player's name, but the quarterback just decided he wanted to transfer, and Duke's suing him under the contract. And that's the way business works. And I'm fine with that. I think the player that signed the contract should be held to the standards of the contract, and so should the school. Yeah. That's good business, and to me, that's fine. But absent those contracts, who's telling any other student that they can't leave a school and go somewhere else and participate in an extracurricular activity? To me, that's just simple. That hey, if you want somebody to stay, then cut a business deal with them to stay. Otherwise, they should be allowed to go, just like anyone else would be allowed to go.
Well, just like the coach is allowed to go, right? I mean, they can do it.
And those coaches are. That's a good point, Brett. Like, what happens with college coaches would never happen in the NBA, Major League Baseball, or the NFL. Take the Lane Kiffin situation. So if LSU decides to fire their football coach, that's on them.
Yep.
Go hire somebody who's available then. If you want to ask for permission to hire somebody's coach, fine. Otherwise, you're going to have to hire somebody's coordinator or somebody who's out of work, whatever. But if you want to hire somebody who's under contract somewhere else, no. Yeah. But that's standard operating procedure in college. They talk about integrity all the time, and they're basically enticing an employee of another member institution to break their contract and disrupt all their assistants' lives, disrupt the decision that the players made when they committed to that school. But we want to tell the players, nope, you can't do that. But the coaches do it whenever they want.
And we'll let you do it right during playoff season too. It's even more difficult. It's like, I don't know what the answer is there. My biggest concern is that, and then the accountability. My hope is these coaches can still hold these kids accountable. Like, I'm sure Coach K would have gotten your face if he didn't like something, right? And because at that point, you couldn't have just packed your bags and gone somewhere else 3 months from now. But now you can. So my hope is the accountability is still there for those players. And I think it is for the right coaches.
I think the accountability is still there, but what I would say is if Coach K, and Coach K did challenge us, but if I don't know that his challenging us would be any different if we could have transferred without sitting out a year. Yeah. That's what I find really kind of interesting about the term loyalty that's thrown out now. They say, there's no loyalty anymore. Players can leave whenever they want. Where's the loyalty? Well, how did loyalty flip just in one decision when the transfer portal came in? So were we loyal, or did we just have no choice?
Yeah, right.
That's a question I've asked. Like, is it real loyalty when you don't have a choice?
Yeah.
And to me, like, if you want a player to stay, one, treat him the right way. That'd be a good start. But the other part is, make the case to the player that, listen, we can use the grass isn't always greener, or if you stay here, here are the benefits. If you leave, you're going to have to navigate this, and this. I mean, you can make that case.
Yeah, right.
If it's such an easy case to make, then make the case. But I gravitate more toward choice than I do obligation. And signing a contract is a choice that you should be held to. But absent that, I think the player, just like the coach, just like the administrator, just like the president, they have the choice whether to stay or go. And I like that better in America than unnecessary and illegal restrictions.
Yep. I do like the fact, too, like the Oregon quarterback decided to come back again. He could have easily gone to the NFL, and he's like, no, I'm coming back, man. Unfinished business, and obviously he's going to get a nice little paycheck. But I think it's cool that he's coming back and going to be this team.
Yeah. So let me, if you can indulge me for a second, let me give you a story that I think made a big impact on me. This was 3 years ago, maybe. Greg Kampe, the head coach at Oakland University, asked me to come up to Detroit to participate in a roundtable discussion on college athletics. And it was to raise money so they could take a foreign trip to Italy. And I told him, hey, I'm in. So it was me, Tom Izzo, the head coach of Michigan State, and Blake Corum, who at that time was a returning senior running back at Michigan. And Michigan had been in the college football playoff and lost. And so he decided to come back for his last year when he could have gone into the NFL draft. He's playing for the Los Angeles Rams now. So in the Q&A after the event, after the main roundtable was over, somebody in Detroit, I assume a Michigan fan, asked Corum, why did you come back for your last year? And Blake Corum is an incredibly thoughtful young person. And what he said was, I know, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I know what I'm supposed to say to that. I'm supposed to say I came back to finish my degree, to win the Heisman Trophy and to win a national championship for Michigan. And then he said, all those things are true. I want to do all those things. But he said, another really important reason I'm coming back is I've always had an interest in real estate. And with my NIL money, I've built up a modest real estate portfolio. And I wanted to another year to add to that portfolio before I went into the NFL. And I sat there, and I think Izzo did too. Izzo looked at him like it was a second coming. But I sat there and I said, this is what in a way, NIL is supposed to be, is a young person taking advantage of a financial opportunity in a responsible way that could really benefit him or her in the future. And I think Tom's point, and it may be a fair point, but he's like, all athletes aren't like him. And I was like, maybe not. Maybe they're all not like him, but far more are like him than I think most people want to acknowledge, that these young people are smarter than we give them credit for. And they're having opportunities to not only become financially literate, but to put themselves, to use this as a springboard into the future that's really positive. And I'm grateful for that. I wish I would have had it, but I'm not lamenting that. I'm very happy with my experience. But I would love to be in the position these guys are in, and I think I think largely there may be problems with it. I'm not arguing that they're not, but there are problems with them driving too. We can sit there and say, hey, they're driving cars now. They're going to get in accidents. They may not keep their license up. They may not maintain their cars. They may get a DUI. Like that may happen, but the overwhelming majority benefit greatly from driving and do just fine.
Well, I think I like the days too of the old duffel bag. You hear those stories of the cash showing up as those days, hopefully are over, right? Because now it's all on the table. Now let's go compete and get the player.
Yeah, and look, the players have always been compensated in different ways. It was just always, as you said, under the table. It doesn't mean everybody did it.
Sure.
But I do think, Brett, this is true. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but I think you could look at every championship banner that's ever been hung up in an arena or stadium and say, all right, they used ineligible players. There's never been a team where a player didn't take something somewhere that would have been, even in a small way, violative of these ultra restrictive NCAA rules. It was absurd, and I'm glad it's over. So we're not asking, hey, where did you get that meal, or where'd you get that watch, or how'd you afford to go home during the summer? We don't have to ask those stupid questions anymore.
Yeah. Amen to that. Talk about the shot, Christian Laettner's shot. You were sitting there on the sidelines, and talk about that one.
I was standing right behind the huddle. It was about 2.1 seconds to go, and Sean Woods of Kentucky had just hit a shot off the backboard to put Duke down 1. And the players came back to the huddle. I don't want to say their heads were down, but they certainly were not up with their shoulders back in a positive fashion. And I think there was a thought in all of our heads that this could be it. This could be the season. And Coach K I can't tell you exactly what he said because I was behind the huddle. I couldn't hear every word, but I knew he was running a play that we had run earlier in the year against Wake Forest. And Grant Hill had thrown this kind of banana ball pass that led Laettner toward the left sideline, and he wound up stepping out of bounds, and we turned it over and lost the game. And so we're going to run that play. And you're kind of thinking, what are the chances of this? But it taught me a really valuable lesson that when the players came back to the huddle, I think there was zero thought that we were going to be able to win the game. And when they left the huddle, they believed that we were. Didn't mean we would. I think the chances were still pretty slim. But if they hadn't left the huddle with Coach K instilling the belief that we were going to win, then the chances were zero. And they pulled off one of the great sort of shots in sports history. And it was an extraordinary happening that I'll never forget. Because I promise you, I was standing there with Mike Bray and Tommy Amaker, assistants at the time on the staff. And Mike Bray, I know we had talked about it afterwards, and he was thinking, he goes, well, we had a hell of a year. You're kind of, what are the chances it's going to happen? And it did. It just extraordinary. But it shows you, in addition to the belief part, it shows you how fine the line is. So the line between being a 2-time champ or being eliminated in the Elite Eight was that play. Yeah. And, so the difference between a winner and a champion can just be one play. It's amazing.
So before we dive into some golf questions, we're going to talk, what's one of your favorite memories you look back on in your career, whether that's, in your commentating career, your playing career, what's maybe one or two memories with just a fond heart that you have?
I think the games that we played, because of the magnitude of the rivalry, the games we played against North Carolina were some of the most meaningful and memorable. Playing against guys like Michael Jordan and Brad Daugherty and Sam Perkins and Kenny Smith, those guys.
Those guys were okay.
Yeah, they were pretty good. People that became great friends in later years. Matt Daugherty. It's just a great group of guys, and it was an honor to play in those games. And certainly, but I think, as I've gotten older, the thing that was the most meaningful to me were the times you spent with your teammates. I mean, I know that sounds kind of hokey.
No, yeah.
But whether it's the road trips or the locker room, the guys I played with remain to this day the most meaningful non-family relationships I've ever had. And maybe it's the shared experience of going through something difficult together and the amount of time we spent together and something we all deemed to be the most important, non-family thing in our lives at that time. Yeah. But I'm really grateful to have gone through that with that group of people, because we were all really different backgrounds, but we were very appreciative of each other and what we all brought. And maybe the most satisfying thing, there was a documentary that was done on my recruiting class, the guys I came in with. And it was called The Class That Saved Coach K. I don't think we saved him. I think he saved us. But, one of the things that going through that process in the documentary that really made me feel good was the things that we say about each other now, we said at the time because we had tape of it. So, and that's not always the case. Sometimes you gain perspective later on about how important somebody was or their contribution. But we actually said those things about each other at the time. And that was it was pretty neat to learn that, or at least to have that pointed out. That was really cool.
Yeah. Did you know Michael Jordan was different when you played him in college?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. From the first day. Yeah.
Wow.
We used to play pickup. The Duke and Carolina teams would play pickup games with each other before the season started. So we might go to Chapel Hill for 3-4 days one week, and they'd come to Durham for 3-4 days the next week, and we would do it that way. And you knew, like, that was a different level of special. And no matter how hard you worked, you were never going to be that talented or that good. It didn't mean you couldn't win against them, because we did from time to time. But he was built different. Like the time I was in the ACC, there were three opponents of ours that stood out above the rest. Ralph Sampson at Virginia, Michael Jordan at North Carolina, and Len Bias at Maryland. They were, that's when you started to say, whoever said all men who are created equal wasn't thinking about that.
They didn't play basketball with these guys.
Equal. Yeah, they weren't created equal. They were different.
That's incredible. Ever played golf with Jordan?
No. We played in the same. I think we played in the same grouping where he was either in front of me or behind me once, but we never played a round of golf together. No.
Yeah. Better bring your Venmo account if you want to play with Michael Jordan and some golf.
Yeah.
I don't talk a little golf. What's I hear you're a big golfer.
Yeah.
Where do you play?
I play a lot of places. I'm a member at Charlotte Country Club in Charlotte. That's my home course, but I'm lucky enough. I play a lot at Pine Valley and Ohoopee Match Club and Burning Tree Club in Washington, D.C. I'll play anywhere, but I love to play. And I wish I had played as a kid, not because, I lament that I'd be better or anything like that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I would be better, but I think I would have learned a lot more from playing golf than playing baseball or basketball. Golf teaches you, I think, how to deal with failure and to move on. And I'm still grappling with that because I tend to keep a bad shot in the back of my mind longer than I keep good shots. There's never been a game that the next play or next shot mentality is more important than in golf. And it's a thing where the ball never moves. Like you don't have an opponent. You don't have an opponent in golf.
Yeah.
Like in basketball, I had an opponent. I had another person or people that were physically trying to stop me from doing what I wanted to do.
It may hit you in the air.
Nobody's trying to stop you. Like nobody can play defense on you in golf.
Yeah.
So you would think that it would be easier, and it's harder. It's an amazing game.
Yeah, and especially when you hit a bad shot and you either drive your golf cart and you got a couple minutes to think about it, or you're walking, you got 10 minutes to think about it. It's like basketball. I mean, you got to react, right? It's over. Move on. But that's one of the hardest things.
Part. And golf. Curtis Strange pointed this out to me. He asked me one time. When you think about if you're going to shoot even par on a par 72 golf course, how long it takes you to take your stance, and then take your swing, get to a finished position to shoot 72. And I was thinking, I guessed, and if I remember right, he said it's probably around. He said he had calculated it's around 5 minutes. So a 5-hour round of golf, if you're playing on tour, hopefully it's less than that if you're just playing at home.
Yeah.
But it should be less. So 5 minutes out of 4 hours. And his point is that's a lot of time, that 3 hours and 55 minutes that you're not putting club to ball.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time to screw yourself up mentally if you allow it. And
I've never thought of it that way.
I'm really good at that. I'm really good at screwing myself up mentally.
Yeah, exactly. Can you talk about a trip to Magnolia Lane and what that golf round or rounds have been like?
Oh, God. You talk about a bucket list to play Augusta National. I don't think I've ever been as nervous standing on a first tee as I was at Augusta National. The first time I played there, I was like incredibly nervous. And I hit for me, a really good tee shot. I knocked it on the green to about 12, 15 feet, and I 3-putted. And I was walking to the second tee going, oh my God, like if I can't make a par after that, what is this going to be like? And I was playing with my brother and two other really good friends of mine. And I eagled number 2, I birdied number 3. and I'm standing on the fourth tee about to step up, and my brother, who's a really good golfer, my brother said, "Hey, no pressure, but you're 2 under at Augusta National with a boat." And
Shut up.
I don't even know where that tee shot went, but
Yeah.
it's just one of the coolest experiences you can have in sports, let alone in golf. I treasured being there.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. What's your go-to game on the course? Like Wolf, or what do you guys like to play?
We usually play like a closeout match where you play one match, play the 18. And if somebody gets closed out, you play whatever holes are remaining for half the amount. And my friends and I usually don't play for very much money. Some of the guys I play with love to play hammer. And I'm fine with it, but I let my partner make all the hammer decisions.
Yeah. That can get out of hand quickly.
I'm trying to keep it together. I don't need to worry about what this next putt is worth.
Yeah. I'm worried about that 5 minutes we just talked about, not the hammer that was just thrown at me,
Exactly.
That's funny. Well, you are awesome, man, to even join us here on the Circuit of Success. And I know you would not have mentioned this, but I can see that little book right back there, Toughness by Jay Bilas. Tell us a little bit about your book.
I had, growing up, nobody ever defined for me what toughness meant or what being a great teammate meant. It was talked about, but it wasn't really defined. And I think I learned more about it. And when I was actually watching a game, this might have been 15 years ago. I was watching a game, and a commentator like me had praised the toughness of a player that I thought wasn't tough at all. He was just a big bully. And for some reason, I don't want to say it offended me, but it moved me to write an article on what I thought toughness meant in basketball. So I wrote this article. Nobody asked me to write it, but I wrote it and I sent it in to my editor at ESPN. I said, "You didn't ask for this, but I was moved to write it. If you can use it, great. If not, I understand." And they packaged the article together and they put it on the website. And I started literally getting mail from all over the world, from military leaders and business leaders and teachers and coaches from all these different sports. And it somehow hit a nerve and resonated. And I shared some of the feedback I got with my wife, who was an English major in college, and she encouraged me to write a book. Yep. You need to write a book about it, but it can't be just about basketball. It's got to be about other things. And so I researched it. I went out and I tried to sell the book idea, and somebody was dumb enough to bite on it, and I wrote the book. And the most rewarding thing, and it's not about me having figured it out, because it was more, the inclusion of my experiences were more how I failed and learned about it than anything. But the best part of the book was all the feedback I've received from coaches, teachers, and the like, and others in business that use the book to start conversations with their teams on what it meant to them. And those have been the most gratifying stories that have come from that book. And the fact that people still talk about it and it still sells, I think, is kind of crazy. But I have a lot more respect for writers after going through that process. It's not easy.
I've heard I've heard it's a tough process. Well, we'll put the link in the show notes down here, and you can click on there and buy that book and learn from Jay there. So last question for you, Jay. This F greater than P right here. This is our firm's mission, is helping you achieve a future greater than your past. And when you hear that, what comes to mind for you?
I think back to the kind of next play mentality, but also the thing that Coach K used to say all the time is you're never going to do anything worthwhile alone. That no matter what endeavor you're in, you could be a tennis player, a salesperson, whatever. What makes the job meaningful are the people with whom you work. And whatever success you enjoy or growth, there's usually somebody behind it, and that's helped you. And that's one of the things, like, I can't repay, this is the way I look at it, at least, Brett, like, I can't repay the people who've helped me in my life. Most of them were older than me, but that really were meaningful mentors and coaches, teachers, and influences. But what I can do is do the best I can to help those that are around me. And so I try, with my basketball camp and leadership academy, the things that I've done over the past many years, I've really tried to this is sort of the way I can give back, and I can honor those that have helped me. I can help someone else. And so I try to do that as best I can. I still do a lot of things. I still try, I have my work that I have to do, but I try to be there for those that need it and that ask for it. If I can help them in any way, I'm always there to do it.
Yeah. Well, this is living proof of it right here. You don't know me from Adam, and here you are in the circuit of success, and you've helped a ton of people with all your words today. So stay with us. Maybe we'll get our friend Jim Holtgreave to we'll get a little game going up there at Pine Valley. And I
would love that, match. And especially if Holtgreave winds up paying. I'm all in. I'm all in for that.
I'm in as well. Jay, stick with me, bud. But thanks for being with us, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brett. It's great being with you.